You are listening to Art Destinations, a podcast where we host fortnightly conversations with artists and thinkers living and or working on islands to see how these unique places shape imaginations. This season is set in Sicily, following on from our Lucha Tasmania and Venice series. Hello, my name is Sarah Rhodes, an artist based in Lucha Tasmania. I co-produce Art Destinations with SARP gallery director Alfio Puglisi. Imagine we are on the terrace of Palazzo Butera in Palermo, looking out to sea after walking through its 30-room museum. The private collection of Francesca and Massimo Valsecchi blends old and new art in a way that feels more like entering a home than a gallery. In this conversation, director Claudio Gulli tells us the story of Palazzo Butera, its loving and highly attentive restoration, its transformation into a museum, and its place in Palermo. See images on Instagram at artdestinations.podcast, and if you're enjoying the show, subscribe and leave a review. Welcome to Art Destinations, Claudio. It's really great to have you here. Alfio's told me a lot about your project, Palazzo Butera, so we're really excited to hear about your involvement. But first of all, I'd love to hear a little bit about your work with the Louvre on the Leonardo da Vinci collection in Florence.
Yes, I started studying Leonardo da Vinci when I worked at the Louvre between 2009 and 2012. At that time, there was a big exhibition after the restoration on the Saint Anne by Leonardo, and my interest was basically to trace how this painting and another one by Leonardo, the Saint John the Baptist, could inform multiple interpretation all along the centuries, I would say, from Sigmund Freud to Jenny Saville, from the Surrealists to Nietzsche. It is something that, in some sense, still fascinates me, how philosophers, writers, artists can basically manipulate established works of art for giving a new and usually radical reinterpretations.
Did you have a background in art? So where did this curiosity for art come from?
Well, this comes from my high school period in Palermo. I would say I had a wonderful teacher who introduced me to museums. Here there is a wonderful museum. It's called the Palazzo Butera. This was for sure my first source of inspiration. The Triumph of the Death. I don't know if you have ever heard about this painting. It's a fresco. It has been detached from Palazzo Sclafani, and it's now in Palazzo Butera. There is a big skeleton on a horse killing people all around the fresco. Quite wonderful. There has been recently an exhibition where there's still this myth that Guernica by Picasso could be inspired by this fresco. The fresco is from the mid 15th century, and it's probably by a Spanish painter. This was a shock for me when I was 15, 16. And this was the beginning, let's say.
And what brought you back to Palermo?
The project of Palazzo Butera, basically. So, imagine these two people, Francesca De Angeli and Massimo Valsecchi, who bought Palazzo Butera in 2016 for creating an open and dynamic center dedicated to the arts and to culture. They were absolutely inspired by this city full of layers, cultures, creative people, a city that's still more affordable than many big cities in Europe. And in this place, a project like the one of Palazzo Butera can really make a difference. You have to imagine this 18th century monster of 30 rooms, 16 are with frescoes, this big terrace facing the sea. And of course, there is also this important collection of Massimo and Francesca. because Massimo and Francesca, they started as dealers, but they never really dealt with art, because in some sense they had a gallery in Milan in the 70s, and they used this gallery as a pretext for working closely with artists, basically. But then they moved into a form of collecting that is more interesting for me, probably, because it's old master paintings again, porcelains, glasses. I became, in those years, let's say in the last 10 years, I really loved to explore these other worlds that I didn't know at all. For the restoration lasted 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. I was involved since the beginning. That time it was fantastic. I was all the time in the archives, because I wanted to know everything about the palace. And luckily, the archive of the family, of the Branciforti, who were princes of Butera, it is still available for scholars. It's in the state archives here in Palermo. So the archive is composed of 4,700 volumes. I only read 40 volumes, of course, handwritten in the 18th century, because I wanted to know all the payments to the architects, the carvers, the sculptors, the painters. And this, in some sense, created a way of working for me for Palazzo Butera. I think it was appreciated. So I'm now the director of the museum.
Okay, just one quick question. Did your research in the archives, reading all those volumes and learning about the building's history, did that influence your approach to curating the Valsecchi collection?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can do many examples of this. Probably the most striking is the archive of Palazzo Butera. Imagine this bookcase that basically takes one room. It's the first room of the Palazzo. It was all painted in a very ugly white. At some point, a conservator cleans a little point of this painting, this layer, and we find a red painting. And so I say immediately, these are the red bookcases of 1795, designed by Pietro Trombetta and carved by a wood carver, I don't remember. So this is the former archive. The bookcases are the former archive of the palace. It's absolutely important. So, of course, everybody hated me at that point, because the conservator had to spend 3 months. Of course, the cost doubles for restoring everything and for finding the real red layer, the real paint of the original layer of the bookcase. This is just an example.
I was just going to say, it's so lucky that Palazzo Butera was restored by people trained in restoration. I mean, you've put so much attention to every little inch of that building. And there would be so many buildings where people are coming in and not really understanding what they have and just making decisions based on money, probably, and the cheapest way to make something. So this palazzo is very lucky to have this team, really peeling back the layers. It's amazing that these stories are difficult to find, but then they're relatively easy to find.
Yeah, I would say that it's the moment for Sicily to really take on the shoulders all of this history and be able to organize it and show to the world what are the important parts of this history. In some sense, everybody who, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody who goes in Rome or in Florence or in Venice knows a little bit of, I don't know, what he has to see. The Colosseum, the story of Michelangelo, of Leonardo, of Giotto, or Titian, Tintoretto, and so on. It is always a little bit incredible for me that here there are a few things that are quite known, like the Arab Norman churches, but still, I mean, I also see many people, even cultivated, coming here who are completely shocked because they never expect such a great and wonderful heritage of mosaics, churches, architecture from the 12th century. And that's okay, but there are many other layers, like the Renaissance. I mean, Sicily has a great Renaissance. Nobody knows that. There's been no exhibitions in the world about that. There is just one name that is a little bit more known, is Antonello da Messina, but still he's, I would say, he's not established as he should, at least in an art history that is becoming global. But it's a moment in which we should have good studies on each monument in English and good handbooks in English, because I'm afraid that people are coming here, are looking around, are looking for food, for drinks, and they go back and they don't really get the point. And it's a little bit a pity.
So what distinguishes the Valsecchi approach to collecting? How does it differ from a regular gallery or a regular private collector?
Yeah, as I say, the gallery was a sort of pretext. But from that decade, the 70s, they sorted out important friendships, I would say. Basically, friendship is the right word. I could not define in another word what happened between them and Tom Phillips, Gilbert and George, David Tremlett, Anne and Patrick Poirier, Claudio Costa, who was probably the first artist they really met, but also Elizabeth Scherfig and so on. Not a large number of people, I would say. Less than 10 at the end. But these created a sort of solidity, of strongness in the relationship. It's not like when you have 20 or 40 or 80 artists that you want to launch as a dealer. It's completely different, I would say. And also, these informed their way of working as collectors with dealers in the field of decorative arts, of British furniture. They became friends again with dealers of British furniture, like Martin Levy, Michael Whiteway, who unfortunately recently passed away. People who were researchers. And so between collectors and dealers, they had common interests in, again, neglected designers like George Bullock. Nobody did know who was George Bullock in the 70s, or Christopher Dresser, more or less. It's the same. Massimo became passionate about that, about these people. So in some sense, the way of working is always that. There's no intention to promote anything. It's just a matter of giving historical importance to things that have historical importance. And with the time, they have lost this historical importance.
So in terms of the Valsecchi's collecting approach, would you say their decision to situate their collection in Palermo is aligned to the collection itself? Are they promoting the periphery or the margin, the less seen, the less visible, I haven't really expressed myself well, but you know what I mean?
No. I completely understand what you mean, and I totally agree. Palermo, in some sense, is part of this process of finding something that is neglected, if this was the question.
Personally, I'm really interested in the periphery, or things that are kind of marginalised a little bit, and knowing that there's actually some real beauty and power in those places that are easily overlooked. I'm wondering if what they were looking for is the same as what I am looking for. I'm wondering if there's like a real shared view on this. And maybe you could share a moment of the last 10 years while you were working at the Palazzo that had an impact on you personally.
Yes, but basically I love the first day of opening the palace in public in 2018 for the first time, and then it's something that goes on from that moment to now. I've seen a lot of people crying after visiting Palazzo Butera. Every day people say, thank you for what you're doing. This is the most rewarding thing. We're even overwhelmed by this sense of gratitude. Also because you immediately understand it's very personal. It's not an institution behind. Everything is being funded by Massimo and Francesca. It's 100% private funding. It's 100% private project. But with this purpose of talking with the others, then you have to speculate a little bit, I think, on who are these others.
What is it about Francesca and Massimo that's so powerful? What is it about their energy that is in the Palazzo's museum walls that people can feel when they're passing through the space? Why are people being moved like this?
Well, the greatness is about this mix of things, in some sense, I would say. But also the great experience of displaying, of experimenting with display. It's something that you can immediately feel. So the display is always incredible, I would say. It's always something that makes you think, makes you approach, makes you feel comfortable also. It's something that is basically just the intention is always to put the things at home. So the artwork is in some sense forced. It's not that I would like to see that in a museum. The artwork is forced to become more domestic with them. And this counts a lot, I think, for the people. Because the people see things that normally could be in a museum in a way that is absolutely domestic. And so with everything, with the Montansky, with the Marimez, with Tiffany glasses. Normally you see these things in the museums. They're in a white box with a big light on that. In their house, they're just on a table, a box that you can open, or a vase. They're living with these objects because they love these objects. So you feel that there is something different, that the relationship between a museum curator and the object.
Well, first of all, I think that's really interesting. By displaying the work in a domestic setting, you're finding a level ground with somebody, like a visitor who goes in. You're making it very relatable. So there's a real integrity in that. But also the fact that they're choosing artists who aren't really famous now. They might have been famous once, or they might be yet to be famous, and they've already recognised the talent in them. But they're not looking for the sparkle. And I think there's a really deep honesty in that. So thank you so much, Claudio. This was a really interesting conversation, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sarah. It has been really a pleasure, and look forward to see you in Sicily at this point.
Oh, I hope so. After all these conversations with different people, I really hope to come and experience Sicily again because I really love going there. I'd love to see it with new eyes after hearing these after listening to these conversations.
Or maybe I will come in Tasmania and visit you.
Oh, there we go. I didn't even offer that invitation. But of course you'd be welcome to Tasmania. You would love it. And you could come and visit Mona, our Museum of Old and New Art in Tasmania, our equivalent to Palazzo Butera. Actually, it was born from David Walsh's private collection, so it uses a similar model. Thank you for listening to this conversation with Claudio Gulli. Be reminded about the next episode of Art Destination Sicily by subscribing to our fortnightly newsletter on our website artdestinations.org. I'm your host, Sarah Rhodes. Ciao for now.